Hi everyone, welcome to ELFH 312. So in this short recording, or what I hope is going to be a short recording, I am going to cover for you some details around the next assignment. So let's recap. On the right hand side of my screen you can see the syllabus for our course. As a matter of fact, there you have it. We have a little bit more real estate. So we have already turned in the needs analysis. If you recall, the needs analysis is where you validated the reason for a learning solution. And when I say a learning solution, is going to be your training plan or your training artifact, whether it's a course or a workshop or a module or however we want to call it. But what you're pretty much creating what the hat is going to be. So you validated the need, determined the current state, the future state, identified the gap, and figured out what needs to happen to solve it, which in this case is going to be through learning. After that, we went ahead and we started to describe what the learner is, who the learner is going to be. That's the learner analysis. You took a minute and you began at a great scheme of things describing who is going to be taking your training. And if you recall, one of the things that I mentioned when creating the learning analysis is depending on who you get, you may not have a chance to fully describe who that person is going to be, especially in the event of onboarding, new hires, etc. You don't know who you are getting. You don't know who the company is hiring. However, you can get from observation or by history, you can get an idea of the profile of the person that comes into a specific job. Say one of the things that we have seen is some companies can describe the type of person that comes in to do the call center. In other cases, you can feel the profile of a person who's going to be a nurse in the emergency room, and so on and so forth. So we took a time to describe who these learners are going to be and what their characteristics are. And remember that sometimes we have to guesstimate and sometimes you have factual data, but at least we have an idea who we are solving for, and that gives us insights on how to create the training. So what we are doing this week, and you have gotten plenty of content between the book and some of the videos that I have put out before, what the context analysis is, which is the next step. So let me stop there for a second. In the syllabus, we have this description. We're going to, through the context analysis or the setting, basically, we're going to describe the pertinent characteristics of the settings in which the training is going to most likely take place, as well as the workplace in which the knowledge, skills, and attitudes covered in the training are going to be applied. So, for example, if you were doing a training for forklift operation, chances are you're going to talk a little bit about where that training is going to take place, and also you are going to talk about where the skills are going to take place as far as manipulating a forklift. So so that's essentially the context of the training and the context of where the skills are going to be applied. Another thing that we're going to cover this time is in this assignment is also the task analysis, or as we also refer to as the course outline, which is this next piece that I am highlighting now. So there we have going to categorize and describe the functions people perform on the job, breakdown of topics within the subject matter, specific and detailed descriptions of the course, and essentially what activities are going to take place so that people can gain that knowledge. Okay, so those are the two things that we are looking at for this week. So let me take you now to the left, and actually let me overtake the entire screen with this document. So here we have a familiar document. You probably remember this document where we started in the previous assignment and I took you through step by step on the suggested headings. And so you already had an idea. I provided you feedback on those headings. In some cases, they were not clear. In some cases, they were extremely detailed, which was fantastic. And in some cases, you guys did a fabulous job where you took it above and beyond and you made the connections and did a very thorough description, but were succinct. So you didn't write pages on pages on pages of information, but you kept it short but very, very punctual. So we covered that last time. So if you scroll down through that document, so you're going to see that document this week, except now we have a second page. In the second page, you have the suggested outline for the context analysis as well as the task analysis. Each one of those is worth 5% of your grade. Now, as before, you're going to turn in both of these into one single document, which means you are going to only do these two components into a separate document, whether it's a 1-page or a 2-page document. I presume it's going to be a little bit more than 2 pages because the task analysis does take some time. But you don't need to turn in a cover sheet because you already have done that for the first document, and that's the only one we need. So I'm not going to make you repeat that same thing. You already know what the requirements are for that cover page from an APA style. And since this document is going to eventually going to be added to the entire package, you don't really have to have that. So one single document for this assignment containing both the outline of the context analysis and the task analysis. Okay, so make sure you have those two into one single document. So I don't need 2 documents, one for each. I don't. So talking about the context analysis, we are going to cover, think about it, and think about when we talk about the context analysis, and as I was saying, you have to describe both for me. Number one, what is going to happen, what is the location where the training is going to take place, and also where are people going to need to display these aptitudes. But you can do it in different ways, and so what I am suggesting for you guys to do first is add the prerequisites. What is necessary for people to know before they come into your course? And the second, or in addition to, it's not an or, actually it's an and. Any required things, readings, worksheets, prior knowledge, or experience. And so that's important because it could be that you are building for a certain level. And if you receive learners who have not been exposed to that level of training or that level of knowledge, when they are exposed to the content you are giving them, they are going to feel displaced. They're going to feel like they are getting a short back. They are giving something that is not making sense to them. So they're going to feel like you're giving them half a loaf of bread instead of the entire thing. And that's a really bad way of me to try to use an analogy there. But think about those pieces. What is needed for your learner to come in and do the training? And then as I have you here on sharing the screen, I'm going to add then, what is the location for the training look like? Right? So you're going to explain whether it's going to be in a classroom, whether it's going to be at the shop, whether it's going to be on the floor, say if it's a retail training, or if it's going to be in another environment. For example, if you think about those of you who are in the armed forces, when you receive shooting training, you don't go to a classroom for it. You probably go to the classroom to get the instruction, the theoretical instruction, how machine guns work and how the ammunition works, how it's supposed to be loaded, how it's supposed to be transported, and all that. But then when it comes down to aiming and firing, you don't do that in the classroom. You actually go to a firing range, excuse me. So that's where you begin to describe the location of the training, whether it's 1, 2, or multiple locations, right? So you need to be as explicit as you can, but without necessarily getting into the 20 by 20 feet room, etc., etc. You don't have to be that detailed, but you definitely have to explain where that location of training is going to take place so that we can understand what you're thinking about and where that training is going to take place. And then the second thing that you guys are going to think about is the setting of the actual work environment, right? So once they have left the training, what does the real life setting look like? So once again, continuing on the example of the armed forces, so if the firing range is where we practice for using the weapons, then when it comes down to reality, you can probably describe, without the probably, you can definitely describe what real life looks like. And I think that's where you begin describing what urban combat looks like, and what other type of combat looks like, and where is most likely, indoors or outdoors firing, and what type of weapon should you use if the enemy is close range or long range or mid range, etc. So that's the best I can do in analogy. So now switching to the civilian world, going back to that example of the forklift once again, it could be that I'm going to train someone on the use of the forklift, and it's all going to be theoretical, and there will be some computer animation or computer simulations that they can use, but they will never jump onto a forklift during training. And so we need to specify that. That's part of the context analysis. But it could be that once the training is complete and they gain the certification, they are probably going to be required to go to the workplace and demonstrate for a matter of minutes, or a matter of an ability, or an item, a mobility instruction. They are going to demonstrate that they can use the forklift for X number of seconds, or for whatever motion in the actual workplace where there is normal setup. And you can describe that as well, and that's the setting of the work environment. Now, why do we do this? We mainly want to call those things out because remember what I said before. In the event that you have to drop this training, the creation of it, and you have to run onto another project, and somebody else is going to pick up your project, they need to know those details. Remember, you are going to be the one who has spoken with the client from day one. But what if you need to move on and do something else, and then somebody else is going to pick up your work? They won't have had those conversations. So you need to have a way to record some of those details. And that's exactly what this context analysis is doing. Okay, so moving on, and let me actually do this. Let me actually go ahead and just highlight these two, which are very important, as well as these other ones. So as a matter of fact, this is probably the best thing to do. So I'm going to indent even further these. So you can see now that we're looking at the prerequisites, we're looking at the location for the training, and the setting of the work environment. So essentially where the training, where the skills are going to be used. So those are the main headings that I'm seeking for on the context analysis. Now moving on to the task analysis, and this is perhaps going to be the easier one when it comes to writing, because you don't necessarily have to write in paragraph format, but it is going to be the most challenging, because here is where you begin thinking about what your training is going to look like. So transport yourselves to your individual topic, and remember what are the tasks that you want learners to be able to do, or what you are going to expose them to, what you're going to present for them, what you're going to model for them, what do you want them to try, what do you want them to do at first, and experiment with, whether it's a task, a manual task, whether it's a cognitive task, whether it's a behavioral task, right? So we have talked about those behaviors, cognition, etc. So you have to think about that, and the beauty of it is you can use it as an outline, literally. So if you want to use bullet points, such as the example in this screen. If you want to use headings, you can also do that. If you're going to use headings, though, remember to use APA style. But if you're going to use bullet points, sort of like a chart like I have, a standard bulleted list is going to work out just fine. Just remember to use your indentations to demonstrate hierarchy in terms of groupings, okay? Kind of like what I did up above. I put the context analysis, which is the main heading, then I did prerequisites, and then the subcategory of that is these 4 bullets. So make sure you use the indentations to demonstrate hierarchy in your topic, okay? So Once again, the task analysis basically here's where you're going to take apart what you're teaching or what you're giving the learner, and you're going to walk them step by step, high level, so you don't need to get into details. For example, so we can understand each other. If we're at a shop and we are going to do an overhaul of an engine, we probably want to say dismounting of an engine. That's going to be one heading. And then a subheading of that will be the tools necessary for that. And another subheading will be the safety to follow when dismounting an engine from a car. So those could be subheadings. And of course, that's a high level. Eventually, when you're designing the training, you're going to get deeper into what that entails. But at that point, right now, for the task analysis, you can stop there. The next piece, once the engine is dismounted, another high priority or high activity, once the engine is dismounted, you need to begin disassembling it by taking the cover, the manifold, the injectors. So those are subheadings, each one of them. You're not going to explain how many nuts you're going to remove. You're not going to explain what type of wrench you're going to use or what cup you're going to use, nothing of that sort. But you definitely want to explain what parts are going to be taken out from the engine, the timing chain, cover, etc. All those things. My gosh, it's been way too many years since I overhauled an engine. Actually, I was 16 when I helped my dad overhaul my first engine. It still used a carburetor. I had never dealt with injectors, so very interesting. But at any rate, back to the example. So in summary, you're going to outline all those tasks and you're going to define the hierarchical context of those tasks. Not a big deal, but you can definitely do that at a very high level. Again, don't get into details. So last details for this particular assignment. Number one single document for both context analysis and task analysis. Number two, no need to create a cover page. Number three, use these headings as a guide, and if you need to expand a little bit, you can, but don't stray too much from these headings. The goal is definitely to be succinct but clear and concise. So if you have any further questions, don't forget to email me, text me, or send a question through the Q&A for class. Thanks everyone.